So CC, with the help of the teams, what a 3-0 win
against the US
absolutely qualifies us for the next round.
I'm looking at the American national team, and I'm looking at the fact that, look, this is the only team that have been to the semi-final in all the edition. I mean, the only teams who have been to all the semi-finals of the FIFA Women's World Cup, and then they've won it twice, 1991 and 1999. They haven't won it after that 1999. They're thinking of winning it again 16 years after. Now, I think Edinokun must have watched the game between the USA and Sweden. Now, if you check both sides, there's too much similarities. Since 2003, whenever the FIFA Women's World Cup gets to hold, now these teams have been drawn together at the group stage. Usually they get to meet, so more like a familiar foes. And you're having the former coach of the US who took them to the final in 2011 in Germany, also the coach of the Swedish national team. No, by birth he's Swedish.
Okay.
He's Swede. And now if you look at that statistics and you look at the fact that also the Americans 28 wins in 37 games, and you tell yourself, can the Super Falcons really overcome these girls? And look at some of the players that played more than 30 games at the World Cup stage. So when you're looking at those facts and looking at the Super Falcons, looking at the crop of players, and even looking at our coach, how far would they go? 3 goals against the Americans. Well, I'm always very optimistic, but in this particular case, I don't know how we're going to manufacture 3 goals against the US without conceding any.
There's something about
looking
sports,
at our
the unpredictability.
Precisely, it happens. Now, they were looking at the fact that the Americans were a bit slow against the Swedish national team. We saw that when we played against them because they were a bit slow. Now, it was goalless. They know each other. They've been together for like a very long time. I know that the coach of the Sweden player actually coached most of the teams in the American, most of the players there. So he knows them in and out. So after watching that, it was a goalless draw. You're thinking you can beat the Americans by 3 goals to nothing. I really don't know the possibility of that. But I know in the Super Falcons, really like he said, there's a stage that determination can take you to. But when you're talking about team play, there's a limit. Of course, when you're talking about team play, do we really have that?
Okay, do we really have that?
I think we're lacking in that, and it's a factor of our preparations. I want to put it this way. They can't draw inspiration from the 3-3 draw against Sweden.
They should have.
Yes, they should have.
But you considered 3.
Yes, they considered 3. But it shows that they can't score. But scoring 3 against the Americans, I see that as an Herculean task. Yep. It's like trying to part the Red Sea. But like Jimmy said, sport is very, very unpredictable. Yeah. A moment of magic. One moment of craziness, one moment of loss of concentration from the Americans, yeah. Anything can happen. Yeah. But again, for female football, I've always noticed this. At the World Cup, we see ourselves as underdogs. Our attitude needs to change. Whenever we're playing any of those opponents, this is we've always qualified for this World Cup times and times.
You know why?
And whenever we are playing against them, you know why we get boils down to our attitude.
You know why we get to qualify for every tournament?
Because we're never fully prepared.
You know why we get to qualify for every tournament? Now, take a look at the qualifiers of how it goes in Africa. Yeah. We don't have a Champions League we play. We don't have a qualifiers whereby you have to group A, B, or C. All you need to do, you play African Women's Championship and you finish first and second. And you're there. This time around, because they needed 24 countries to play, that's why we won't have a third one. So once you get to your home and dry, you get a spot at the World Cup. So it's easy. Now, by the time you start having groups A, B, C, and D, and everybody gets to play, like you have in the African Cup of Nations,
but you guys,
it might just change. If we have that, I think we'll be more serious about preparations and everything.
You also forget that there is a graduation. That most of these girls also, like Asisa, they did well at the under-20.
But we still have DD.
No. What I'm seeing here is this. You have a team like you talk about evolution and devolution. Yep. So let us continue using the evolution here. Now you did that this squad is made up of the experienced players and the young ones, the best you could have. But I want to agree more with Yemi here. I don't know if I'm right.
Of preparation?
Because no. In terms of
attitude,
morbid fear. In terms of that lack of confidence. In terms of saying we are playing a superior side. Because we all know the defending champions of the female World Cup are the Japanese, not the USA, not the Germans. The Germans even hosted, not the Swedes, not the Norwegians, not the Norwegians, not the Chinese, not the superpowers that we know.
Exactly.
Are you getting it?
So look at the growth of women's football in Japan. No, if you look at that, you compare, because if you look at the progression Japanese have made, also the same thing with China, then that will tell you that when they won the World Cup, it wasn't really a
that is exactly what we are saying.
It was the development of the game.
So
the female league. Do we have a
it
female
doesn't.
league?
Right now they are on break.
It's a paper league.
It's a paper league. Let's get it
Don't
right.
call that.
Okay, you guys take it easy on CC.
Don't call that a paper league.
All right, okay. All right. We are leaving. Okay. We shall. CC, give us hope.
Okay, the hope is if we don't
Permutations.
I'm not going to go into permutations.
Where's my calculator?
We should bring out your calculator.
The calculator is beat the Americans 3-0 and it will qualify. No, that's the calculation. Because check the points, just 1 point. The Americans already have 4. I know how many goals they've scored so far. So looking at it,
how realistic is that?
That's what I'm saying.
Whether realistic or not, what he's trying to say here is this.
We still have a possibility of winning.
Yes.
We can qualify either direct by beating them 3-0.
Or
any win, if we beat them 1-0 and we have 4 points,
maybe best loser.
So let's just show our own part. Let's try to win.
That is just the thing. Win that match
and leave everything.
Everything is possible.
If the Super Falcons don't make mistake, and of course they try to curtail the Americans, and because they were a bit slow against the Swedish national team, if they can look at that, exploit the loopholes.
We must win.
We must win.
Yes, that was what I said against Australia. I said they are going for all 3 points. If they just try and be there, don't lose concentration. Just be away.
You guys
for
have
full
been
90 minutes.
To give that.
You have been so high. You have been so hard on her.
And maybe Precious Day
So let us come to you guys. We remember that in '87, Nigeria sent a bunch of talents, to the World Cup, the Junior World Cup. There, Coach Udemos there was the coach of the team in Chile, 87. We just came back then from a successful 1985, where we went to China and picked up the maiden under-16 World Cup, and went to Moscow, where we won. We got to the semi-finals and came back with a bronze medal. And that team was captained by Andrew Uwe, Rumba Nduka-Gbade, also captained the under-17 team. And then a fusion of these players in '87, maybe Yemi will give us some of those stars who graced that particular occasion. By the time we put in the same group with Brazil, and the team was the Brazilians were afraid of Nigeria. The way the press even said they packed out of their hotel because for fear of psychologically. And when we met Brazil, just as we met them this year, it was 1, 2, 3, 4 without reply. I think we only managed to get a point against Canada after the tournament, and we came back home. So it happened again this year. We arguably were talking about success, Sukari, Inacho, Awoni should be. In fact, Awoni is we don't have anybody in the Super Eagles. He should be the top striker. And okay, but Yemi.
For the Chile 87 squad, like you said, a few players that will resonate with the public. William Opara was a goalkeeper.
Played for the Super.
Exactly.
Went on the global Super Eagles.
Yeah. You remember Nduka Ugbade.
Yes.
You remember Adeolu Adekola.
Yes.
You remember Jonathan Akoborire.
Yes.
You remember Etimesin and Thompson Olia, who also went on to play
for the Nations Cup. Won the Nations Cup in '84.
Exactly.
94. In '94. Yeah.
But I don't want us to just throw away with the baby and the bathwater as regards this particular team. Don't forget that after '87, we went to Saudi '89. Yeah. Yes, we didn't do well in '87, but in Saudi '89, that was when we had the Daman miracle. We got onto the finals. And in that particular team, we had the likes of Angozi Keji, Undika Ugbade.
Nasa was there, Unduka was there, Baba Abdullahi,
Samuel Elijah, Jimo Balogun, name them.
The question